Hello everyone. Today we will talk about functions and their domain and range. So let's say we have a function y equal to f of x. We have x as the independent variable and y, because it's a function of x, is the dependent variable. And the easiest way to explain domain would be what are all of the possible values of the independent variable, in this case x, and what would be the range is all of the possible values for the y value, which in this case is the one that is dependent. So let's take a look at a few different functions and see if we can see that from their graphs. So let's start with the function y equals 2x plus 7. As you can see, this function is continuous. If we zoom out, we can see that for any x value, we get a y value. However, if we look at other functions, for example, y equals to 5 over x minus 3, we see that at x equals to 3, which is right here, we do not have a y value. And we can say that the domain of the function would be any x except for x equal to 3. If we look at the y values, we have pretty much all of the y values except for when y is equal to 0. So if we zoom out, we can see that. Let's look at a different function, y equals to square root of x plus 2. And we can see for that function that we do not have any x values that are less than -2. So we can say now that the domain of that function is from -2 to infinity, because we do not have any values for x over here. And then if we look for the range of this function, we can see that it does not have any negative values. It starts at 0 and it only goes up to positive infinity. If we looked at yet another function, which is a logarithmic function, we can see here that we do not have any x values that are less than 3. So we can say that the domain of the function is from 3 or greater than 3, because at 3 we do not have anything, and we can go to positive infinity. And for the range, we have values that just keep going. What about another function like cosine of x? So here, if we zoom out, we can see that for any x value, we have a y value. But what are the y values? The lowest value for y we have is -1, and the highest value for y is 1. So for the function cosine of x, we can say that the domain is any x from -infinity to infinity, but the y values are only from -1 to 1. And you might say, how do I know how to find the domain and the range if I do not have the graph of the function. So there is some rules about finding the domain. So the first rule would be if we have a denominator in the function, so there's a fraction, the denominator cannot be 0. Another rule is if we have a radical, a even radical, the value under it needs to be greater than 0. And the third rule is the argument of a logarithmic function needs to be greater than 0. And we saw this in the examples before, that if the radical was less than 0, we didn't have any x values, we had a vertical asymptote for the fraction function, and also for the logarithmic function, we did not have any values that were less than 3. What about the range? How can we find the range? So to find the range, the easiest thing would be to substitute different values for x into the function and see how y is behaving. Also find the minimum and maximum value of y, which we saw in the case of the sine function. And the best thing would be to draw a sketch and see how the function looks like. That would give us pretty good idea about the domain and the range. That was for today. Thank you.